Welcome to the Art Studio Insights podcast, where we demystify the creative process and exchange ideas with career-minded artists. We are your hosts, Adriana Amay and
Jackie Sanders. We are two emerging artists sharing forward the advice and business lessons we have learned along our journey. So if you're not already, please go ahead and subscribe. This will help other creatives like you find our podcast, and you'll be notified when we drop a new episode every week. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about marketing yourself as an artist. But first, Adriana, what have you been up to this week?
So really exciting. Just recently, I did my first in-person color mixing class. It was definitely overdue.
Yeah,
I had been requested. Some of my visitors had seen my color journal, which is kind of how this got started. And some of them had asked, I want to do something similar. Will you teach me, right? And I kept getting this request over the last few months, but recently I had to. Kara and Dorothy, who were like, you have to do this, please make it happen before we have to move back. And yeah, it turned into, all right, let's do it. As we've talked about before on the podcast, done is better than perfect. So we gave it a try, and actually I was really surprised. The class was amazing. I am definitely considering offering the class again, and I'm also looking into options for doing it either recorded online or even having a live online option, because I have friends and fellow artists that are spread out throughout the world, and some of them were like, I can't be there in person, but can you make this happen virtually? So exciting things coming ahead. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how this idea evolves and what it turns into. How about you, Jackie?
That's super exciting. I have absolutely loved seeing all the videos and pictures you've had from it. And it just honestly has made me super eager to get back into the studio. So as I've shared on here before, I just recently moved studios. So really the past month, my whole creative process has been like totally out of sorts, because if anyone's ever moved anywhere, it just like puts a wrench in everything. And I'm a very process routine type person. So when things aren't in the right place or I don't know where they are, I'm just totally flustered. So I am happy to announce now, I feel like I'm finally in the new space and comfortable enough to really start diving more into my creative process. So I moved in the last week of June, and then with like 4th of July vacations and getting settled, this past week, I finally hung the pegboard, got shelves organized, started like assembling more desks and things. So it just feels so good. And hopefully, fingers crossed, as I'm starting to prioritize more studio time in here, focus studio time, I'll be able to create more pieces. So I'm very excited about that.
Oh, that's super exciting. Yeah. And being that I'm across the hallway from Jackie, I've got to see kind of like the evolution as it takes place. So every day that I come in, they'll be like, oh, that's new, something's moved around, and that looks really, really cool. So I'm obviously really happy for you. It's coming along beautifully. It looks done now. So this is great.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's definitely been one thing that we talk about all the time is, luckily, as a career-minded artist, there have been things that I've been able to do over the past month that are still productive to getting me towards my long-term goals, that are different than simply producing artwork itself. Obviously, that is a huge aspect of creating an art business. But as we're going to talk about in today's topic of marketing yourself as an artist, that also takes time. And that also was something that I had the luxury of prioritizing the past month. Of making sure that I'm really set up so that when I'm in more production mode, I can really focus into that. So marketing, I feel like this is almost a black sheep topic that a lot of artists don't like to talk about. They'd say, oh yeah, I know I need to be better at this. I need to be better at that. But it's almost this black cloud that most people try to avoid. So we're going to be talking today on just our mindsets around marketing as an artist, as well as some details of what you can and should be doing as a career-minded visual artist. So really, when it comes down to it, your presence as an artist and really as a brand, because you are a company, should all be aligned. So your messaging, from what you say in person when you're at in-person events, whether you're digital presence, social media, website, or even your reputation as an artist, all of that really needs to be aligned. And that's essentially what your marketing plan is.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's almost like you could think of it as your marketing in a way is like your footprint, right? It's
Right.
like your fingerprint. It's literally tied to you, and everything you do and everything you present yourself as can be part of your marketing. But before we dive into more details about all the good things that marketing can be and how it can help you in your business, let's talk a little bit about our backgrounds in marketing. So we both
Yeah.
have marketing as part of what we've been doing for years. So, in my particular case, I actually went to business school and my concentration is in marketing. I won't tell you the long story, we'll save that for some other time. But essentially, when it came to picking concentration or focus as part of my degree, marketing was the most attractive one, the most fun looking one, and the one where it's part of it is you're telling a story, right? And storytelling is one of the oldest things, that as humans
Yeah.
we've done. So that's where I went. It was great. We did a lot of fun stuff in school. And one of the most important things that I learned through marketing in school was it's a tool. It's basically
Yeah.
how you let your audience know more about you or your product, depending what you're working in, or service if you're service oriented artist. But like the big thing of it, you might go, okay, so where does marketing really fit in? And my product, like, what is it really? Well, it's basically, if you think about it, right, if you want to stand out from the crowd, you want to have a story that your
Yeah.
collector, that your buyer, your client, you want to have a story that they can invest in, right? It's not just about the thing, it's about the story behind the thing itself as well. And that includes the person that made it, and that is you. So that's
Right.
one of the biggest lessons I got out of, marketing school, or marketing classes, I should say. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's up to
Exactly.
you how you use it.
Yeah, and that's definitely, I don't have a formal background in marketing. I got my degree in college in studio art and then my master's in exhibition design. So I never got like formal training from a marketing perspective, but similarly, it's really just storytelling and making sure that you are leveraging what is valuable about you or your product and making sure other people see that. So I feel like I'm almost like a self-taught marketing expert just from hours and hours and hours of books and YouTube videos and podcasts, and actually was able to use all of that self-taught knowledge to currently I work at a digital marketing company. So I do social media for over, I guess, like dozens and dozens of different clients, and really be able to learn that more business side of marketing. And like Adriana was saying, really hand in hand, it's not much different in the art world, whether you're marketing, let's say, tennis shoes or artwork, or like the strategy and the fundamentals of it are very, very similar. And I think that's what can be super intimidating to some people. Because especially as an artist, I feel like one thing that I've learned that was really hard for me to almost accept is that truly, if you want to build a business, honestly, I would say like 60 to 70% of that has to do with your business and marketing side of it. I think we've all, maybe you are the artist yourself or you know of artists who you're like, how does the world not know about you? You are so insanely talented. And we have this kind of like dream idea of like, okay, if your craft just becomes better, then you'll make it. You just need to keep focusing in on the creative process, which 100% yes, that is a very important part of the business. However, if no one knows that you're there, then people can't buy from you. People can't become your collectors. Galleries won't know about you. So there has to be that marketing side in line with your creative process.
Yeah, and I would essentially add to that, it's like, if they don't, I mean, part of the marketing bit of it, right, is for people to know you exist. There's
Yeah.
this trope out there, the stereotype, or I don't know, popular idea out there that you keep working, keep your head down and keep working and you'll be discovered. when after you're dead and they find an attic full
Right.
of hundreds of paintings, forget that. Like I'd rather people know about it now while I'm alive. Thank you very
Right.
much.
And
So
I
it's
think that
it's striking that balance. Yeah.
right, exactly. I think the biggest thing for that is also if you are self marketing yourself, sometimes that's where people feel uneasy, or even the idea of you don't want to feel too pushy or too braggy, but really like giving yourself the value that you and your work are worth, because there are a lot of talented artists out there. And I just want to be like, the world needs to know about these people. Like, why are you not marketing yourself? This is amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of too what we have to talk about, why do you need to market yourself in art as an artist, right?
Yeah.
Um, like we're saying, I don't know why, and I don't know why it's out there. There's the stigma that artists shouldn't market themselves or their work, like they're selling out. But it's like, if you think about it, even hundreds of years ago, they usually had patrons. They had to market themselves to somebody that would
Right.
pay them for their supplies, because paints weren't cheap back in the day, right? Materials weren't cheap. They weren't
Right.
as widely available. And, again, this is like hundreds of years ago, think Renaissance. They had to market themselves to some wealthy patron that would take
Right.
them under their wing and
Support
fund
them.
their projects. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know what happened in in art history. At what point did it not become okay to market yourself? And, I don't know. I don't know what happened. If there's any art historians listen to this, please send us a message, help us
Yes.
out. I
That could
don't
be a
know
deep
when
dive
it
whole
did not.
episode.
Yeah, that could, yeah. If any art historians are listening to this, please let us know. We definitely want to dive into this of what happened. When did it change from it's okay to sell it and market yourself to it's this mysterious thing, and apparently you got to do it for exposure for free. Different rabbit hole, of course. But
No.
anyways, back to the topic of why. um, so if you think about it, like I said, either in history, even in modern times, some people might say, well, marketing feels icky and I don't know how to do it. And should I? Do I have to? And it's like, if you work for any company, you're going to notice they may not market you personally, but they're marketing as a company. If you're an
Yeah.
independent artist, you're a small business owner. You're also a business. So why wouldn't you market yourself? Like you're a business, right? Now, if you're doing this as a hobby, you're an enthusiast, that's awesome. You totally don't have to do this. But if you're
Right.
career minded, you're a business. You have to get eyeballs on your work, right? And
Right. Exactly.
yeah, and not only that, think about it this way. So, unless you specifically have letters in your art, let's just say that disclaimer, the art does not speak for itself. Some artists are like, oh, I don't need to talk about it. The art tells the whole story. No, it doesn't. It's an image, right? That everybody can interpret differently.
Right.
Marketing is a tool that allows you to tell your story. Like, what is it about?
Right.
What was it inspired about? Is it about a memory? Is it about maybe it's about activism? Is it about, I don't know, a place that you love? Is it just the aesthetic, which is fine too? Like, what
Right.
is it about? Because if you think about it, oftentimes those person, the folks that are collecting our art, they want to tell the story to other people too. So they might be like,
Yeah.
I think it's about this, versus saying, actually, I got to connect with the artist. This piece has to do with when they grew up and they met this person and then this happened. Like we're
Yeah.
we're all storytellers, right? Or that's part of our DNA. They want to tell the story too, and they don't know what it's about unless you tell them. They can only guess.
Right.
So it's a way to tell our story and what we're all about and what we represent. So marketing, yeah, it's not icky. It doesn't have to be used car salesman trope situation. It can literally just be about sharing, what are you about? What is your
Mhm.
art about? What do you bring to the table? And obviously let that person decide if they align with it, if they connect with it.
Right, exactly. And especially from like the highlighting the stories aspect of that, you can almost think of it as like you are building a relationship between your future collector and the piece that they're meant to bring home with them, so to
Yeah.
speak. So, and the way I really think about it, and how we've been talking about in our membership about it, it's really like four different levels. And we'll just go super broad here, but really you can think of it as that relationship of, okay, the first thing is you need somewhere where people can connect with you and discover you and your work, that like first point of contact. So might be an in-person event, it might be at a networking event, maybe on social media if the algorithm is in your favor. But really, if they discover you and say, oh, that's interesting, it's like that very surface level. Then the next level is, okay, you as a marketer educate the collector about you, your process, this specific piece of work. So this could be in more long form social media posts, maybe a blog, maybe YouTube videos, or again, maybe an in person one on one meeting rather than a big networking event. Maybe you have them come to your studio for a 30-minute coffee meeting where you can really build that connection. And then, of course, a third way of marketing yourself is that yes, you've already invested in them. You've been sharing this information to educate them on you and your work. Now they need a way to reciprocate that. So, how are they going to purchase artwork from you? Is it going to be in person? Is it going to be only in your studio? Are you going to be selling online? So, at what marketing point are you going to have that clear point of if you feel invested or connected to a piece, now that you've learned more about it, how are they going to purchase it? So that's obviously a very important level too. And then the fourth one, which I think is really what a lot of people forget about, or especially if you're an emerging artist, don't think about that often, especially if you're like, oh, I've only made one or two sales to family members, or even if you feel like, oh, I've only made 100 sales, but they were all in markets. So I don't really need to think, I'll just wait for the next in-person event. If the last year's taught us anything, you can't always necessarily rely on that. So the fourth one being, how are you going to build that long-term relationship? And I like to think of it as how are you going to turn your one-time customers into collectors and lifelong fans of you and your work? So a very common way of doing this is also with blogs, but especially newsletters, maybe having collector only events, sending them a quarterly postcard. So really investing in, as a brand, showing your customers and collectors that you value them. Like you were saying, the comparison to larger companies. How many times do a big company on your birthday send you maybe a free gift or invite you to a certain exclusive thing because, oh, you've been following their newsletter for a year or 2 years? And really figuring out those 4 points of contact, what they look like for you as an artist. So again, somewhere where they can connect and discover you, somewhere where you can educate them about your work and your process, where you sell to them, and then also build those long form relationships. Because I feel like that those four together is really that structure that you need to bring people into your process and keep your community strong.
Yeah, and I would add to that last one, if you think about it, it's a little bit easier to talk to an audience, say, like in the case of the newsletter, without going down the rabbit hole, an audience that has already signed up to learn more than for you to try to approach someone that doesn't even know you exist and you're trying to
Right.
get them to buy your stuff. So think about it that way. Like Jackie said, that's an easy one to forget, but honestly, one of the easiest way to have repeat customers is
Right.
to actually get them to sign on to learn more about you. So they might have started with one piece or maybe just showed interest. They may have not bought anything,
Yeah.
but you never know where that goes. And that feels a little less intimidating because they've already said yes by signing
Right.
up to your newsletter. So for them to say yes again is going to be a little bit easier than a total stranger. So
Right.
there's that. So I just wanted to add
Exactly.
that little bit before we go into the next part. Do you have any other comments on that one, Jackie, before
I
I
was
get
gonna
rolling?
say, yeah, I was just gonna say to that point, I feel like that is so true because, yeah, you're basically giving them what they're asking for. They're telling you, I would love to learn more. I feel like there's part of that creative process that, as an artist, like it can be super magical and it can be super fulfilling. It isn't always that way, but for the outside looking in, it's very much perceived that way all of the time. So, like, yes, I would love to see behind the scenes pictures of you in your studio every single week. And they ask for that. So you're really just giving them a service per se, or giving them content that they've already asked for. And yeah, again, maybe they buy an art product one day at a market, maybe a coffee mug, or maybe your pattern printed on a
Or
towel or
sticker.
something, or a sticker. Yeah, okay, they buy something maybe 50 bucks or less, but then they sign up for your newsletter, and 2 years from now they're looking to buy a home, and they purchased a original painting for $3,000 because you've been sending a newsletter to them and you've been top of mind and they've become a fan of yours and they've just been eager saving up to buy an original piece from you. Like that wouldn't be possible if you didn't have those four systems in place, and especially that fourth one of building long-term relationships with your collectors. So we are both very big fans of it, and we'll definitely be talking about it in more detail in future episodes. But
Yeah, it's like
really
you
think
can't
about those
tell we're
four
passionate
things.
about this, right?
I think that's the distinguishing factor, like being career minded though. It's really okay, are you thinking for that short term one time sale, which yes is super gratifying and super fulfilling, but yeah, are you striving just for that or are you striving for those long term building of your audience, building of collectors and lifelong fans who then will tell their friends about you? Because nothing's better than like a personal recommendation or like your own spokesperson because they do marketing for you. And that's
Yeah.
the best kind. Word of mouth marketing. It's the best kind of marketing.
Yeah, it's still a solid strategy. So I definitely agree with that. But as you can tell, we're very passionate about this, and I'm gonna climb on the soapbox for this for a second. I mean, we have been, it's fine. But essentially, okay, here's one of the biggest points of resistance that that we hear, right?
Right.
There's this apprehension, right? So people might be like, oh yeah, I understand marketing's important, but dot dot dot, right? And then the excuses start flowing in. Or
yeah,
I mean, sometimes they are genuine concerns. Let's not dismiss some of it is legitimate concern, right? But let's discuss a couple things in terms of like encouraging you to at least explore this in your business if you haven't yet. So think of it this way. You might think, oh, but it feels icky and I don't know how to get started, etc. Look, a lot of us are introverted, right? Well, I'm somewhere in the middle. Jackie's definitely extroverted. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm somewhere in the middle. I heard this term some time ago and I love it. I don't know where it came from, but I keep seeing it pop up, which is artrovert. So some of us are introverts unless you ask us about artwork or a process or the materials we're talking about, and then we'll talk your ear off. Like it's something we're very passionate about. And if you think about it, that is part of your story, right? Your process, your artwork, etc. So that is something that you can use in your marketing strategy. So as you send out that newsletter and you're wondering, I don't know what to tell them about your process. You got new paints, you're excited, you're jumping up like a kid up and down. Tell them about it. Like they don't know, and it won't feel icky because you're not saying, hey, buy my stuff. You're just telling them, look, this is why I love making this, like this is what's involved. So you can always kind of take that approach, and that takes a little bit of the kind of like some of that apprehension away. Also, it may feel vulnerable at first. Yes, I am on video. Yes, I'm on a podcast right now. Yes, I show up, for a membership and all those things. I'm still that way from time to time where I get a little bit of the stage fright and I'm like, hold up, Jackie, we got to re-record that. I'm having a moment kind of
thing.
And
it took time to get there too. Like, okay, baby steps of, okay, like being in front of a camera for a picture and then doing like a selfie video and then time lapse. And then like, there's various steps that you can take. You don't necessarily have to go into, okay, a 4-hour Twitch live stream if you've never put your face on video before. Like if you can, more power to you. That'd be great. Just jump into the deep end. But but you can take baby steps towards it as well.
Yeah, and at some point or another, we'll definitely have to make a full episode on this, on how to show up online, and we'll go into that at some point. But for now, just know if you're in the beginning stages of like a marketing strategy and even showing yourself or talking on camera, don't worry about it. A little bit at a time. We'll definitely have to discuss with you guys kind of like some strategies that have worked for us to make it a little bit more sustainable. Let's go with that. Also, remember the story that you share through your marketing message is one that you customize and curate. So you want to keep this authentic. We're not saying make some fake personality situation as to how you show online. No, not that at all. It still needs to show up as you, right? Recognizable you. But you also don't have to reveal every single little detail about your background or why you make the art. Like if it feels too vulnerable, you don't have to say all the things. Know that the way you show up as part of your marketing and your bio, your statement, the things you put online, you choose
Yeah.
what you show, and it's what you feel comfortable with. So a concept I've heard before, and I'll just go ahead and throw it out there, is in terms of your marketing story, you can think of it as a box, right? You choose what
Mm,
goes into that box. There are certain things that may come up that will not make it into the box. So, for example, I'll never put anything ultra personal about my family online. It's just,
yeah.
I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't think it really adds too much to the story of my art and my background. If it's something like where my grandmother, going to my grandma's house growing up, or it's something about like a fond memory of my mom and I, like in the garden, like those things, yes. But like anything else beyond that, if I don't feel like it's completely relevant to the art, no, like I don't feel comfortable with that. So
Right.
whatever that may be for you, just know whatever you share in your marketing story, that's a box. You choose what goes into the box. Just don't put fake stuff in the box.
Right.
Make
That's
sure whatever
very
you put in
true.
there is you, right, Jackie?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too of like this is also going to be different for everyone though because I definitely follow a handful of artists where like I take the same position as you, Adriana. A lot of things in my personal life I don't share unless they are connected to my creative process. But I also know a lot of artists who, for example, maybe they're a stay-at-home mom and them and their life with their kids is a huge part of their
And pets.
concepts and their process. Yeah. And so it's one of those, okay, like nap time painting sessions and like you are almost in the day-to-day life with them and their family. And that's a huge part of their brand. And they chose to make it that way. I also know of other artists who are also stay-at-home moms, paint during the nap sessions. And I had no idea until they said it like 2 years later. And I'm like, wait, what? I thought you were like 24. And they're like, nope, I'm older, or like whatever.
Some of them
So,
you don't even know they had kids. Like the
right.
way
Like,
they're
I didn't know you
presenting
had
themselves
kids.
online, nothing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And that's a very empowering feeling, which I want to make sure all artists and business owners really is like, that's how you should feel. You should feel in ownership of your marketing strategy and how you are perceived. Not that you can always control it, but you do have control over what you share and don't share. Yes, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit, maybe in terms of like taking a picture or showing some behind the scenes, but you don't ever have to share anything that you don't feel comfortable sharing because it's your business and you get to be known for what you want to present to the world, which is the whole point.
So we're going to leave you with that and hope you enjoyed this episode.
As always, both of our blogs will be linked in the show notes where you can find episode notes, resources, and a downloadable PDF to all of our notes about today's podcast episode.
If you want to stay connected with us in between episodes and share what you have learned, you can follow us on social media. I'm at Amay Art across all platforms.
And I'm at J Sanders Studio across all platforms. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.